And welcome to Learning from Leaders. This is your host, Patrick Dewar. I've got a great show for you today. How many of you are as old as I am and have children that are about to go to college? Well, for most of us, the thought of sending a child to college gives you, I don't know, waking up in the middle of the night afraid because it's going to cost a lot. In fact, the time when I went to college, I could pay for myself. Today, you almost have to have some sort of extra funding from somewhere. My guest today is going to be addressing just that. He is a college planning authority. His name, Kevin Campbell. He has a business that basically helps mom and pop get junior to college without going broke. Their program actually involves a coaching process that really gives all of the areas, or helps the parent and the student in all of the areas of funding, admissions, and the other aspects of getting someone in college without sending mom and dad to the poorhouse. My guest today, Kevin Campbell, College Planning Authority. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, how much does it cost to go to college nowadays?
It's gotten pretty pricey, and that's kind of a trick question. Let me answer it this way. When you look at the costs of college these days, you have to look at the total cost of attendance. So when you look up the tuition schedule for a university, that only tells part of the story. What you have to look at when you're looking at these numbers is what is the total cost of attendance for that school for a year. These days, a private university is running anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 per year total cost of attendance.
Per year?
Per year. Your public schools, your state schools are running about an average close to $25,000 per year. You might find some a little bit lower, down around 20, but total cost of attendance for a state school these days is running around $25,000.
Gosh, when I was in school, it was around $8,000. Now, I know that was in the Cretaceous, but...
Right. Now, you had mentioned, before the show, you had mentioned how much was a credit hour when you were going to school?
It was like $8 an hour.
And you went to Texas A&M,
right,
correct?
I went to a state school.
Just a minute ago, while we were waiting for the show to start, I looked up what the current rate is at Texas A&M. You said it was $8 per credit hour, and that was sometime in the 80s,
yes.
Right? Yeah. It is now $177 per credit hour at Texas A&M.
Oh, I'm stunned.
Yeah.
I mean, we were like, it went from 4 to 8, and everybody complained.
Yeah, it's now $177 per credit hour.
Now, normal student takes 12 to 15 hours, right?
Yeah. Now, what's important to look at that also, so we just talked about how many credit hours, what the cost per year is, but the real underlying value or the question needs to be not how much does it cost for a year, but how much does a degree from that school cost? Right. Because the graduation rates vary greatly. At your public universities, the average graduation is 5.5 to somewhere or to 5.8 years.
So almost 6 years for a four-year degree.
And if that's the average, that means some guys are doing it in 7 or 8. Right. So that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes private schools can be more of a value, even though they have a higher sticker price. What's it going to cost when you get out of school? Because your private universities average 4.5 years to graduate.
So is it that they have lower requirements as number of hours, or?
It has to do, I believe, more with focus.
Oh, okay. If you're paying that much to get through it, I imagine you'd be pretty focused.
A gentleman I know was a graduate of TCU,
right,
in Fort Worth, Texas, and we were having the same discussion. And he mentioned when he was at TCU, you were expected to graduate in 4 years. There was a stigma associated with not graduating in 4. So that's not the case at a lot of the public universities.
I have a feeling that part of it is Dad has said 4 years is all I'll do.
Yeah.
You know? And if it's going to be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 extra, you're not going to mess around.
Right.
But that's a dad thinking.
And something else to keep in mind, though, too, is that the private universities have more discretion in their scholarships, with their internal scholarships. They have more money.
Okay.
they have larger endowment funds. So when you start combining the fact that they have more money to give away to students and the accelerated graduation rates, then you start looking at the end price. Because what's really relevant is the number that's relevant is how much is this going to cost me when I'm done.
Right.
When I've got the paper and I'm going out into the workforce, how much have I spent or how much am I in debt?
That's right.
That's what the number that counts.
Well, and what I've heard, and you mean tell us the rest of the story, but I've heard that you literally can come out of college now with a mortgage in debt. In other words, the equivalent of $150,000.
Absolutely.
And no house.
Right.
And you can't get away from that money.
Think about starting go back 20 years or so ago when you
Right.
got out of A&M, and think about graduating with the amount of debt that an average house costs
Right.
in that era, and it's just stunning to come out of school with that kind of debt. Now, if you start doing research on the average amount of student debt, there's something that's missing these days in most of that research. Most of the times when you hear people talk about how much debt students are taking on, they're not including how much debt the parents took on for that student in those numbers.
Right.
So it's not uncommon between between the student's loans and the parents' loans to start seeing debt of $70,000 or more at graduation time.
Right.
So that's when they're out of school. Not to mention what they've spent while they were in school, but leaving school with $70,000 or more in debt. The problem then is, so you're coming out of school, or you're entering the workforce, $70,000 in debt, the interest on it. So it's not $70,000. You don't pay back $70,000.
Right.
You pay back a lot more than $70,000, and then you have to look at your earning potential on top of that. Do you get to keep every dollar that you make?
Right.
No, you get to keep a portion of every dollar you make. So if you start looking at how much earned income it takes you to pay back that $70,000, we're starting to talk about some staggering numbers.
Absolutely. And I know that you can't get away from it. One of the things that we want to do in each of our segments today on Learning from Leaders, when we're talking about college planning and college funding, it's a lot of pain. And a lot of parents believe that they can't qualify, or their kids can't, they want to get a scholarship, but scholarship money is few and far between. It's harder to get. So one of the things I want people to do is connect to you. So what would you want somebody to do who's heard this much? Hopefully they go on to this part 2 and 3. What would you want them to do right now?
Well, they can go to our website, which I believe is going to be on the screen, or they can pick up the phone and give us a call at 817-231-0233.
Now, what are they going to get for visiting with you?
Well, a tremendous amount of education.
Right.
We are a coaching and consulting company, and we really enlighten people as to what they're about to get into.
Right.
Most people get very overwhelmed with this process. There's a tremendous amount of moving pieces in sending your kids to college. It's the combination of higher education, your state and federal government, and the banking system all playing in one pie, and it gets very complicated.
I wouldn't doubt. Well, folks, I encourage you to connect to Kevin Campbell, call him, and become informed on how you can afford college. Catch us at part 2 and 3 right after this.